Hi everyone. So Audrey, do you want to start by introducing yourself?
So hi to everyone watching. My name is Audrey Pe. I'm calling in from Manila, Philippines, and I'm the founder and executive director of WeTech.
Hey everyone, I'm Avanti. I'm 13 years old and I'm the preteen technology specialist at Workshop for Me.
Hiya, I'm Hannah and I'm currently a software developer and also founder of VR
Hi everyone, I'm Jo. I'm a first year undergraduate at the University of Oxford, and also in my spare time I'm a social entrepreneur with my startup SheDot.
Hi everyone, I'm Soran. I'm also a first undergraduate at University of Bath studying maths and computer science, and in my spare time I'm a femtech entrepreneur.
All right, awesome. Now that everyone's introduced themselves, I'm just gonna kick things off. Let's hope the screen share works again. Okay, awesome. So hi again, everyone. My name is Audrey Pe, born and raised here in Manila, Philippines. I am 19 years old and the founder and executive director of WeTech, which is short for Women in Technology. So WeTech is a nonprofit organization based here in Manila that aims to educate, inspire, and empower youth to break gender barriers and use tech to make a difference in society. So to run through our projects at VTech and the advocacies that we've started and kind of how I began this nonprofit at 15, I thought it would be a good idea to start off with how I got into tech in the first place and how that story connects into VTech itself. So I have for all my life studied here in the Philippines and in the local Philippine curriculum in our middle school years, so around grade 6 to 7, we have this required computer curriculum. And this computer curriculum, though, does not have any computer science in it at all. So it's basically how to use Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, skills that I didn't really find that interesting at that time. But one day, my computer teacher decided to go completely off curriculum and introduced us to this simple game where a snake had to navigate a maze using blocks that represented lines of code. That was the first time that I realized that I could learn basically this mysterious language of the computers and one day make my own apps and websites. That prompted me to ask my teacher if we would be learning coding in class, to which she said no, because it's not part of the Philippine curriculum. But if I went online, I could find resources to essentially teach myself how to code there. And that's what kickstarted my tech journey. I went online, did CS tutorials in my spare time, watched introductory CS tutorials on YouTube, that sort of thing, until I reached early high school, ninth grade here in Manila. And I started being asked about what I wanted to study in the future, to which I replied computer science. I immediately received a lot of pushback from my immediate community. In my grade level, I was the only girl that wanted to go into tech, and only one other girl in my year wanted to go into STEM as a whole, and she wanted to be a doctor. Meanwhile, a teacher even told me that she didn't think that I would be a good fit for the tech industry and that I should consider something along the lines of the humanities instead. That made me go online and literally Google women in technology because I had this feeling. I thought that, there should be women in tech role models out there. I just didn't have them in my community. And after discovering statistics like how only 18% of tech companies here in the Philippines are founded by women, and reading stats about how, according to pay scale, women in tech are paid 18 to 22% less than their male counterparts, 15-year-old me got really, really angry and thought, like, what can I, as a 15-year-old Filipino girl, do to help close the gender gap in technology, instead of just waiting until I got older, graduated high school, went into college, worked a couple of years before delving into solving this problem of the gender gap. And hence, WeTech was born. WeTech has hosted the first Women in Tech conference for students and by students here in the Philippines, and what was called WitCon in partnership with Accenture Philippines. So WitCon was a one-day gathering that started in 2018 that brought together students, educators, and startup folks from Metro Manila to gather for a day of learning about the stories of women in tech and to participate in workshops led by women in technology. So we have our youngest participants in the upper right picture. They were grade school students from a local all-girls grade school here in Manila. And I'm happy to say that after they attended the Women in Tech conference back in 2018, they joined their school's robotics club and now compete and represent the Philippines for their grade bracket. After the Women in Tech conference, we then proceeded to tackle the other side of the tech problems here in the Philippines, which deal with the lack of tech access. So we acknowledge that among the barriers that limit a lot of young women from going into the field of tech here in the Philippines is also the socio-economic gap that exists, and that over half of the country has little to no access to Wi-Fi or even a desktop or laptop at home. So my story and my ability to look up CS tutorials, go home and pull up the internet to learn and basically build my own CS education is one of so much privilege in a country where 1 in 2 Filipinos don't have Wi-Fi at home. So this is what inspired the Women in Tech Teach program, in which my team and I go to different parts of the Philippines with no CS curriculum, and we bring in secondhand laptops and workshops wherein we teach students how to code for the first time using Scratch. So I'm happy to say that since WeTech has been launched in 2016, we've been able to impact over 100 students, teaching them how to code for the first time, and we've been able to bring in over 1,070 students to our different events, whether it be our Women in Tech conferences and roadshows, wherein we go to different public high schools and we talk about careers in technology and what courses you can take up in college that can lead to a career in tech. So this slide talks a bit about kind of the iceberg effect, and I want to touch on how I'm really grateful for the media exposure and the advocacy that I do. But I also want to say that behind all of this is my team. So I work with a total of 72 high school, college students and fresh graduates from not just here in the Philippines, but as well as the US and the UK. These students do everything on top of their academics and their extracurriculars in school because WeTech is entirely a volunteer organization, and our applications for our next team cycle open actually next month. So to keep in touch, if you want to join our team or have any questions for me, as we will be opening WeTech team applications soon, please keep in touch via these social media handles. And I'm going to hand things off to Avanti.
Thank you for your amazing presentation. So that was really good. And it's a very inspiring story as well on how you got to that path. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. So hey, everybody, I'm Avanti. I'm 13 years old, and I'm the preteen technology specialist at Workshop for Me. Workshop for Me is a nonprofit organization through which we teach children age 6 to 16 how to develop their computer science and programming skills. So I started off as a young girl who really loved creating things. Like I used to create robots out of cereal boxes, and I wished that one day that could be a job. Now, during this time, I was pretty young, but my mom and brother were running some sort of workshops. I didn't know quite what they were doing, but I always thought it was really, really cool. So one day I had the courage and I went down and I saw, and I was like, wow, all of these children are creating such cool things. I also want to try. So I loved it. It was super cool. And they were running programming workshops. So they had founded Workshop for Me together. So I loved it. I created more and more projects until I stopped. I noticed that no one from my age and no girl was doing it. So I got kind of demotivated and I quit. But my brother knew how much I loved it, and he just couldn't let that happen in front of him. So he tried and motivated me to do it again. At first, I was a little bit angry at him for even trying to get involved. But then I realized that I had a true passion, and this time I wouldn't give up, no matter what was going on. And this made me really passionate, and it made me think that if I'm doing something which I really love, it doesn't matter who else is doing it, as long as I like it. So I wanted to spread my message, and I wanted to get more young girls into STEM subjects, especially. And I think that this would help motivate other girls to do it. So I spoke at different technology conferences, like the Scratch conference, which was my first ever talk, which I spoke at. And during this time, I also went to different hackathons as well. And I loved these experiences. They were so cool, so memorable to me. But then I decided that, okay, let me go back to my roots. Let me try and be hands-on and really help children get into these subjects. So I started off with my friends. And my friends didn't really like a lot of STEM subjects at all at that time. They found it quite difficult, but I didn't quite understand why. So I explained it to them simply, and I wanted to make it fun for them. And they really enjoyed it. And now they understood it a little bit more, and they thanked me later on for that. So I thought, if I can help just a small group of my friends, maybe I can help a bigger audience. So on February of 2019, I launched a first of its kind revolutionary event called Codutainment. And Codutainment is a concept where children come with their friends or family to the movie hall with popcorn and drinks with them and watch a fun, interesting movie, but presented in a way which teaches STEM fundamentals. Now, currently, due to the COVID-19 lockdown, I'm running different courses online, including our Workshop for Me courses and also Girls in ICT Day celebrations. Since I was running so many things online and I realized that it works quite well, I decided to launch Codutainment online. So this was the premiere photos, as you can see over here. And now I see around us that so many of us are doing e-learning. Here in Luxembourg, where I live, schools were announced to be closed on Thursday, and by Monday, we were all using our computers and learning from home. That is so commendable to me, how quick we could make the change actually happen. So my message is, let's use e-learning as a chance to completely transform our education system today. Let's make more girls involved. And e-learning is the perfect time because we're already dealing with so much change. And as I saw, that this change can happen so quickly if we really have the need to. So thank you. And now I will pass it over to Hannah, and I'm sure she has a wonderful presentation waiting for all of you guys.
Thank you, Avanti. That was amazing. What a cool presentation. Right, so I'm going to talk today about using virtual reality for good. So to give you a bit of a background about myself, I graduated from university in computer science a couple of years ago, and I went to Deutsche Bank on a graduate scheme, which is a software engineering graduate scheme. And alongside this, I also set up my own company, VRCalm. So I got funding for my startup VRCalm from Sky, which was an amazing opportunity, and that really helped get the ball rolling because I really like virtual reality and I really wanted to work in the social impact space. So I wanted to work on this new project. And along the way, I met some really amazing people. And also I've done some volunteering with the STEMette, which is a women in tech organization helping young girls get into technology. And I also had the opportunity to go to NASA as well with STEMette. So I've been very lucky to have these opportunities that have helped me improve in technology and learn about coding and meet other amazing women in tech. So what is VRCalm? VRCalm is a social, uplifting virtual reality experience where seniors can engage and explore in a natural environment. What do I mean by this? So my great-grandmother had dementia, and when we went to the care home and we took her outside, she was always really, really happy and really enjoyed her environment. But when we took her back to the care home, we could tell her mood changed and she wasn't very happy anymore. So I really wanted to give her the opportunity to go outside and enjoy the outdoors without her having to wait for us to take her. And so I built a virtual reality experience for my university project. And this was a really cool experience for me because my understanding of virtual reality originally was purely gaming. There are a lot of cool games on the store like at the moment, but there weren't very many social impact projects. So I really wanted to make a change in that space and build something which actually helped people. And alongside learning more about virtual reality, I saw some other projects which are really pretty cool, helping humans. And I just want to spread the word about how cool virtual reality is and talk to you about these other projects too, which are helping the tech for good space. So these are two examples of some really cool VR games. Some of you might be familiar with it. This on the left is Beat Saber, which is like Star Wars meets Guitar Hero. And the next one on the right is Moss, which is like a really cute RPG game where you walk around in a forest and have this mouse, and it's a really, really nice experience, which is quite therapeutic and also very fun. But what about for good projects? So one of these projects is called Tree, where you're taken through a forest and you are sort of personified as the tree. And you go through this journey of it growing throughout this forest, and then it's eventually cut down in the rainforest. And This was really impactful in the VR space because it made people actually much more aware about the environment and encouraged people to be far more environmentally friendly. Another really cool project I found was Snow World, and this helped burn victims who had experienced burn injuries, and when they're in the hospital, they were exposed to this experience, and it actually helped decrease the level of pain because it was used as a distraction while they're in this snowy world. So that was a really awesome experiment, and it went really well for them, and they're just consistently trying to introduce it more into more hospitals. And another one I really admire is the Body VR, which is another really cool experience, which is actually for students and helps improve learning. So the Body VR takes people through their own bodies, and they're sort of taken through like the blood cells and through the organs, and they learn more about how their body actually works. And introducing this into schools is a really good idea because it makes them so much more engaged, and memory retention is improved dramatically compared to just learning from a teacher. So these are really cool projects, and I really recommend you check them out. And alongside that, I just want to talk to you to say, if you want to reach out to me about VR Calm, learn more about what we're doing to help people in isolation or seniors with dementia, and then you're welcome to reach out to me. So now I'm going to pass you over to Joanna.
I'm on mute. There we go. Okay. So I'm just going to share my screen. Thank you so much, Hannah. That was so brilliant. And Avanti and Audrey before me as well were all really fab. And I'm so fascinated hearing everyone's stories all the time. So also, I just wanted to thank you all for being here and tuning into the youth panel. It's so brilliant to see that organisations such as Women in Tech are making space for young people's voices to be heard and recognised, and recognising the importance of an inclusive conversation, having not just us, but everyone at the table at the same time discussing the importance of young people and women in tech. And I had such a wonderful time inviting people to be a part of this panel, and I hope you can agree that all of their stories so far have been really inspirational, and all the others that you'll hear will also be equally inspirational. More about me, my name is Joanna, and aside from being a first-year undergraduate at the University of Oxford studying economics and management, I'm a social entrepreneur and public speaker too. My company, SheDot, creates a series of children's picture books tackling social issues, and we reverse taught prejudices by taking a classic fairy tale and giving it a modern twist. Think like Rapunzel, but a girl saves the knight. Is the girl knight saves the boy Rapunzel, Princess and the Frog, but the frog turns into a princess, or Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, each of which represent a different physical or mental disability. The books are available in 6 languages, available in physical and ebook versions, and have reached over 15 countries in impact. They've been featured on channels such as BBC News and received endorsements from the likes of Peter Tatchell, Miriam Margolyes, OBE, and Stonewall. My personal highlight has been creating a limited edition version of the book for Marina Rinaldi, which is a luxury plus-size women's wear brand who even dressed celebrities for the Grammys. We also, in conjunction with the books, and something that I've been involved in and passionate with since I was 12 years old, run workshops and mentoring opportunities, predominantly for young girls from low socioeconomic backgrounds who are interested in traditionally male-dominated careers, including things like teaching them how to code, teaching them internet safety, or just more about awareness of different female role models in the technology space. And some of those workshops have been supported in the past by companies such as Microsoft and Visa. I first met Ayumi and the Women in Tech team at the first edition of the Global Awards in 2018 in Lisbon, which I miraculously went on to win somehow, and have since spoken a couple of times within the UK chapter of the Women in Tech movement. As a public speaker, I've been invited to speak in places from New Delhi to Montreal on the subject of youth empowerment and the importance of getting young people involved in technology and entrepreneurship. I've had the huge privilege of giving 2 TED Talks, speaking at companies including Facebook, Disney, and Coca-Cola, and even presenting to Her Royal Highness Princess Anne, which was a personal highlight also for me. But what's most important about these tech talks, though, and why I'm so passionate about women in tech as an organisation and as a movement, is that whilst it's an immense privilege to be at these places, I'm speaking on behalf of a whole generation of young people who all deserve to have their voices heard. Today, you'll hear about just 5 of the countless stories of what young people are doing in the tech space and the amazing things that they're getting up to. And then what about all of those young people who desperately want to be involved, but who don't have the right resources? Or what about those who don't yet know that they're the next Ada Lovelace of their day because they've never heard of the word programming, perhaps as Audrey was saying earlier, about places where don't have access to Wi-Fi? A lot of the work that I try to do through talks or through workshops I run and the books that I write is centered around allowing people to discover for themselves who they want to be, regardless of the preconceived notions of what someone in a particular career looks like or what society tells them is right or wrong. Sometimes those barriers are obvious, unjust laws, overt discrimination, and a lack of government funding. But other times it's just a lack of visibility of role models a person can aspire to be like. Other times it's unconsciously writing off groups of people from those that we decide are worth spending our time focusing on, such as the lack of funding for female businesses. So I want to encourage you, whilst we're having this panel discussion today, to consider these as case studies of the power that access to tech education and someone who tells you they believe in you can have. We are just 5 of many more. Let's change the discussion from, wow, they're doing something cool, to how can we support you to make this better? And how can we have more people follow in the same path? Before I hand back over to the other wonderful women in this panel, I want to leave you with some recommendations of what we can do to make tech more inclusive for young people, and in particular for women. Although I'm sure a number of you are mentors already in some form or another, taking on as many mentees as you can in whatever capacity you have time for will be invaluable to a young person who has no insight into what it's like in the sector or needs a role model to follow. Vote with your currency. Women-led ventures are critically underfunded, and investors in general are likely to overlook any propositions that comes from a young person, or indeed even one that might be willing to sacrifice some profit for the greater good of the people, such as a social entrepreneurship. Even if all we're doing is putting £5 into a crowdfunder or passing on contact information for someone who might be able to help, it all counts. And finally, advocate. Be an Ayumi from Women in Tech. Invite young people to speak at your workplace. Give them time and space to present during a conference. Raise their concerns on their behalf when their voice cannot be heard. Though there are infinite ways we can all contribute, these are just 3 very simple takeaways that I hope that we can all agree are manageable goals for all of us to focus on. And now back to the panel. I'll really happily pass on now to Sarah, and I'm really excited to hear what she has to say as well.
Hi everyone. I hope you're all having a really good time so far. I've honestly been mind blown by hearing all the stories of these amazing women and girls so far, and so proud to be part of this panel. So I'm Sarah, and I consider myself a femtech entrepreneur. As well as that, I am a Teens in AI ambassador, which I'll go on to talk about later. I'm here to talk about my tech career so far. So back in November 2016, I went to my first hackathon ever, and I'm going to take you through the journey of how I went from going to one to organizing them. So as I said, my first hackathon, it was an eye-opener, new experience for me, which I really enjoyed, to be able to solve modern day issues using technology. I organized and my team, and we were able to create a revision app, which was used for people who are in GCSEs, because that's the time that I was going through. That was my first insight into tech. Then further on into school, I was part of a King Certificate project, and the project was to build a robot that would play a mobile game using only webcam as its input. This was where I was first exposed to artificial intelligence, and my fascination grew for it as to how it could help the modern world and transform it. Due to this, I was encouraged to read a report released by the House of Lords on if the UK was ready, able, and willing to implement artificial intelligence into the country. After reading the 200-page report that they released, I took 3 really important parts from it. First is equality, and how AI can accelerate gender equality internationally, gaining recognition, unleashing people's subconscious bias, etc. Secondly is how artificial intelligence can transform the way that we learn. And some of the previous girls have already mentioned this. I know that Hannah said with the VR, like that's completely going to the same role as what I'm saying, with how technology can transform the way we learn. And thirdly, how artificial intelligence and data can really improve our healthcare systems and then therefore improve our overall health. Due to this, I got recognized and was invited to go and speak at different conferences internationally. My first conference I ever went to was AI for Good, which was held at the UN. And there I launched an initiative called Teens in AI with Elena Sanel, the co-founder. And this initiative is to encourage young people from the ages of 12 to 18 to work with technologies such as AI and create good from it. In the conferences, I talk about the importance of youth involvement in when having discussions about tech, because the youth should be the part that are shaping the future because they are the future. Secondly, I once again talk about how people have to be educated on these technologies. We don't want people to be scared, and we want to encourage them to use them. So we need to show them the impact that it can have. And finally, I had the great honor to go and speak at the House of Lords, a PPIG meeting on diversity, and then therefore talk about how important diversity is. Ensuring that the industry is diverse ensures that the products which are being created are more inclusive. Now, going on to planning a hackathon. So the first hackathon that I ever planned was in January 2019. And the reason why I do this is because I really want to motivate young people and encourage them to go into these fields with no age limit whatsoever. And in doing so, encourage more girls into going into it. I want to show them that they can change the world using tech as a tool. Because of this, we as a team, we emphasize on the ethics side of creating technologies. So in our most recent hack, which was Youth versus COVID, which we closed only last week, it was an online hackathon, which we did live streams on YouTube every day to do workshops and talks. And we ensured that on every day we had at least one ethics speaker just to emphasize the importance of creating tech for good. And finally, the challenges that we present to the teenagers are all based on the UN SDG goals. And so we mostly tackle climate action, health, equality, and education, which we find to be the most important. And finally, what's next? So I'm going to be launching a podcast with my friend in a few weeks' time on the impact the media has on ourselves. And in addition, the impact that it has on society and how some people are not encouraged to do certain things just because the way they present themselves, their gender, their race, etc. And finally, I'm going to definitely be continuing my activism on creating tech for good. So thank you all for listening, and I hope we can go on to the Q&A session now.
Well, whilst we're waiting for questions for the live audience, I actually want to ask a question to some of the other girls, since you all had such brilliant presentations, and thanks, Sarah, for going afterwards. It was really great to hear yours too. I wondered if you could tell the audience one takeaway of what they can do to get more young people involved in technology, and maybe a why sentence of why they should be. I'd love to hear yours.
I have an idea if I could go first, or do you want to
go for it?
Okay. So I think that we should have a lot more media coverage on girls and on women. I think that this is really important because I've noticed that a lot of us, including me, we try and fit into the social norm. And if we see that someone else, like as you said, as all of you guys said, to have a role model, I completely agree with you guys. And if we have social media coverage on this, then more women and more girls will feel like this is the new normal, they could also go and dive into this. And this would also, this would ensure that they feel more secure too while doing this as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think as well, just to encourage the people around you. So like my little sister, for example, like the whole interest in tech sometimes is the problem is that they're not encouraged when they're a bit younger, and that's when, you know, the real interest in tech sometimes starts. And like I wanted to go to, like, one of the schools that I went to, it was a girls' school and it didn't offer computing as a subject to learn, and I had to transfer it over to a boys' school, which is crazy. So I think the problem, obviously, like, try and encourage younger girls around you into tech as much as you can. And like, I'm just trying to encourage my little sister, and also parents, obviously, like, they're a big part of it as well. Any parents you talk to that might have some interest in what you're doing, just talk to them and get them to try and encourage their kids to get into it, because they have a huge influence on what their kids will learn. So I kind of try and do that as well. I try and pester my mum and dad to make my sister do more coding as well.
Hannah, actually,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I completely agree with you. So one thing that I actually want to make is that from the day that you're born, like, there's already gender stereotypes put in place for you to pursue certain careers. Like, if you walk into the toy shop, like, you see the girls' toys and you see the boys' toys. Like, the girls' toys is to, like, stay inside, like, nurture children, play with, like, your little kitchen set. Whilst, like, with the boys, it's more adventurous, building. And so I think it's just like, one thing is, like, I say to parents is, like, make sure that you expose your kids to all sorts of, like, toys, and just because it, like, makes it more stimulating, and in addition opens their eyes and tries to prevent that gender stereotype.
And jumping on that point about role models and the importance of role models, I think by exposing more young people to women in tech and, like, breaking that stereotype, we're also teaching young girls that they can do anything, you know, they can do anything regardless of what society tells them. And I think that's such an empowering thought that we each carry in our own stories. And I hope that whoever's watching feels that too.
I super agree. And I want to add to all of those that also, I think a lot of people think that if you learn technology, then you have to become a coder. Not that coders aren't great, Hannah. Like, it's just an essential basic life skill that you will use in any career, in any area that you pursue. It's like learning English or maths or science. It's a basic skill. So I think that also lowering that barrier to say that it isn't the be all and end all, like, it's a skill that you need to do anything, I think is really important. And we're leaving girls behind when we don't teach them the skills, because they'll be behind when they then enter the job market. And Audrey, as you were saying, like, we all hold stories as role models, but perhaps you guys might want to talk about who your role models are, which was a question that came in. Do you want to start, Audrey, since you mentioned it?
Sure. So personally, I really look up to this one specific interviewee from WeTech. So WeTech actually started as a blog before we became a community organization. And I really used it as an excuse to, like, cold message women in tech that I looked up to via, like, LinkedIn and Instagram. And one of the people that I reached out to, like, super out of the blue, was Allison Folk. And she is a UX developer from Pittsburgh and a part-time model. So that's really cool. And I interviewed her for the blog, like, all the way back in 2016 when we first launched. And just hearing her story was so inspiring, because at that time I knew, like, no women in tech from my immediate community. And she was breaking, like, all these stereotypes I had about what it meant to be someone working in tech. Because at 15, like, if you asked me what I thought a successful person in tech looked like, I'd immediately think of, like, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates. So, like, Caucasian middle-aged men that, like, I couldn't really relate to as a woman of color. And, like, Allison's story just blew me away, because she told me about how she got underestimated a lot because of her appearance. She got some really crude online remarks made at her when she posted, like, some modeling pictures. But when she persevered through that, she felt like it was so important to share that being feminine and being good at coding aren't things that are mutually exclusive. And, like, more young girls should realize that they don't have to act or, like, talk like a character from The Big Bang Theory to be successful in STEM. Like, you yourself define, like, what kind of STEM role model or successful person in STEM you want to be. And that's something that Allison taught me, and I've kept with me ever since.
Audrey, I completely, like, agree with you. I think it's just, like, this type where, like, in computer science, you just have, like, these nerds that, like, wear glasses and play video games and read comics. But, like, it's just completely not true. And so I'd say, like, one person that I found as one of my role models, even though she's not a computer scientist, She's called Merit Moore, and she's a ballerina and a quantum physicist. And I found it so inspiring to see how you can like take on both two careers which are completely like opposite spectrums, like some might say, and pursue both in such an amazing way. Like just to be a ballerina, first of all, like takes a lot of hard work and like many years of practice. And then also being a quantum physicist, like you have to spend many years at university doing research to then finally go on. So she really inspired me to like balance my life and make use of the time that I have so that I can both do study at university, but outside of that, find time to do things that I'm passionate about, like conferences like this and hackathons. So she's definitely one of my role models.
Sarah, I actually also agree with you that like my role model isn't actually in computer science, but she is still a role model for me. She's called Melissa Benoist. Maybe you guys haven't heard of her, but she is an actor and she plays Supergirl. And we've all grown up seeing Superman on TV and a lot of male heroes, but I love that she's a female hero and she embraces that. And as a person, she stands for women empowerment and getting young girls to just feel accepted and they are perfect for just who they are and what passions they want to pursue, even if it's not an industry or a place where women are that common or that accepted. So that would be definitely one of my role models.
One of my role models, you may have heard of her, is Anne-Marie Maffedon. I'm a big fan of her. She's the CEO of STEMET, and so she's partly the reason why I got into tech originally. Is when I was 14, I just went to a workshop that her company was holding, which was like using Scratch, just trying to like make a little code, like make a little cat move about the screen. And then that's basically when I first actually started trying to code. And then, yeah, fast forward to now, I'm like volunteering for her workshops and helping other younger girls learn to code, which is really fun. But she's done so much to help the whole women in tech space. And she's not a coder anymore, but she was like the youngest graduate in maths, I think, and like computer science. Like she's super clever. So yeah, she's a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, I have a soft spot for Anne-Marie. She's great. She graduated from Oxford, so have an extra soft spot.
Yeah.
And from Merit, she also did her PhD at Oxford, so they're both very close to my heart. But I have so many role models. One of them would actually have to be a woman called Nadia Okamoto. She's 21, and she's just finishing her junior year at Harvard, and she's the founder of Period, which is a nonprofit organization across the US, the largest nonprofit supporting women who don't have access to sanitary products. And I just love the fact that it is such a taboo subject. And she's not only balancing a university degree at one of the world's best universities, but she's also managing one of the US's best organizations tackling a problem which is so common and that so many of us face with. And just the fact that she is on an uphill battle and doing that so amazingly, I really admire. And our next question that's come in is about how can women who are in leadership positions, perhaps older than us, who have more power than us, what can they do to lift young women in technology up and do more to help support?
Ooh, I can have a go at, oh, sorry, does anyone else?
You go.
Thank you. Okay. So I think definitely first thing that came to mind would be to give young people, especially like a seat at the table. And I know Joanna touched at this in her presentation, but it's so important for people in leadership positions, CEOs, or just very like established people, not just in technology, but in other fields as well, to acknowledge the value that Gen Z adds to the table and our unique experiences, growing up with technology, being born into this age of digital media, being very, very proficient at it. It's so important as well for, I think, young people to be able to express kind of their concerns about the things that are happening, because they will ultimately lead or we will be the ones experiencing how it continues in the future. And I say this in terms of not just like the lack of representation of women in STEM, but as well as issues like climate change, gun violence. Like these are issues that are, yes, happening now and aren't going to stop unless you really get the youth involved. And I guess concrete ways to do that would be when you're making big decisions in a company, like consult Gen Z, when you're talking about how to make a project more inclusive, like get somebody from Gen Z at the table to consult with. And I think common experiences that we all have here at this panel is that we've all been able to share like our experiences speaking at different events. And I think that's so important as well, to showcase stories of young people putting out like positive projects and positively influencing the world. Because at the same time, I feel like while there are people like us whose stories are getting these types of platforms, they're equally like, it's another side of the internet I've noticed, wherein there's that like the Gen Z and Boomer divide that I think could really be, you know, eradicated if we had more dialogue surrounding it. So just starting conversations and bringing like Gen Z's voices to the table would be my answer.
Yeah.
I completely. Oh, sorry.
No.
I completely agree with you, Audrey. I think Gen Z and iGens are such an important generation. I am an iGen. I think that you guys are all iGens too. No? Okay. Yeah. But I definitely think that that is a very important point to bring iGens and to bring Gen Zs to the table. And also another way is if you are women in leadership positions, then you have a lot of power. And with power, you have a lot of reach too. So again, with the point I was saying earlier, maybe in your company or whatever, what you're working for, definitely promote woman-oriented positions as well. And also going with the Gen Z, yes, definitely take young children or iGens into your board table. So I would completely agree with all of you guys.
So when I joined Deutsche Bank, it was like literally super intimidating because it was literally like a sea of white men who were averaging age like 50. And I was joining this all-male dev team, and that was super scary. And it took me a while to actually meet a woman in a leadership position, particularly. And I think when I actually met her, it was really cool to have that experience and actually chat with her about the diversity problem as well. And she was quite aware of it, and she actually took it on board, having had that conversation though, which was really good to see. And she actually started trying to sort of set up this mentorship like sort of scheme, so to match you up with other people, other women that you might not have been aware of in other departments. And that really helped me because it sort of opened my eyes to her experience as well and her career path and any challenges that she experienced. So that sort of mentorship relationship really, really helped me, especially in such an undiverse environment. I think those kind of schemes can be really, really impactful if a company isn't that diverse, just to have that relationship with other women, even if they're not in tech or in the same department, that's fine. Just having that kind of chance to sort of learn about her career path is really invaluable.
So from me, what I would say is, because you're a woman in leadership, like you've gone through so many experiences to get there. So I think always like sharing that, whether that's like on a blog, on Twitter, on Instagram, where people are going to see it, like really inspires young girls. And so just to lead on from that, to like work with nonprofit organizations such as STEMETS and like such as Teens in AI, which what they do is encourage girls in tech. So I think it's so good that like there's organizations out there that work with primary school kids, because I know loads of companies who have internships and open days for people who are at university or maybe finishing high school, but that's too late. Like girls are already disencouraged to go into tech from the ages of 6. So for women in leadership, like if you can get your corporate and like your company to encourage and do workshops in primary schools, I think that's such a good way to go.
I totally agree. I think the younger we get them, then the longer that we keep them. I also agree with what Hannah was saying about that mentorship connection. I think what I would say to women in leadership positions is take on those mentors, encourage children in school to arrange a visit, to come and visit you at the company, see what it's like in the day in their life. I think that exposure is really exciting for young people who maybe have never stepped in a company or go home and say, oh my gosh, today I visited X company. And sometimes it's difficult if you're just an individual, just trying to do your day-to-day job, you don't know how to reach those people or where to find these people. And to that, I would then say encourage your company to start an access program to introduce work experiences for a week in the summer for GCSE students or for younger students, maybe just a day in the life for ones who are even younger, as Sarah was saying. And to get those iGens in, as Avanti was saying, I think it's really important that you as an individual are holding your company accountable so that they are doing something to help shift the difference. And you as an individual have power, but you as a company have even more. And one of the other great questions that we have is about perhaps those young people who we're trying to target and those companies are trying to access. And it's, what advice do you have for girls who feel that they are too introverted to enter into a male-dominated field like tech?
Ooh, I'd love to chime in on this one. Because personally, so I am naturally like very, very introverted, and I'm an only child, and growing up, like I'm that kid that would barely talk to anyone besides my parents until I reached a certain age and I started opening up. And I think a large part of that was through public speaking and through joining my school's debate club. But I guess one story that, like, whoever asked that question, I just want to give you a virtual hug, because I really felt that in the intimidation and entering, not just a very male dominated field, but a field where I think personally did not know anyone that was in it. So that was really tricky. And I remember when I went to my first tech conference, I went to that conference here in Manila, that was in this really huge conference hall. And like right when I walked in, I wanted to call my mom and ask her to pick me up, because I saw barely any women and no other teenagers. And I basically told myself that if I like backed out now, I would regret it. And I'm so glad I didn't, because basically that experience like not only like just exposed me to how big the gender gap is in tech, but it also like reignited like my interest in tech, and that I was able to sit and watch different panels, ask questions, and just being really proactive, I think really helped me get over that fear of, I guess, embarrassing myself in this field. And I think it's really important to know that you're not the only one that feels this way. Like there are a lot of people out there that also have their hesitations about going into tech, but feel introverted as well. And if it helps, I think by pushing yourself, like I've been able to grow a lot as a person through like making my introverted self go into these like very social opportunities. And actually by attending that specific event that I mentioned, that was how I was able to secure my first speaking gig at the Association of Southeast Asian Nations Entrepreneurs Conference, because I was able to network and meet people. And that only happened because I made my very introverted self like go into that event and take up that opportunity. So yeah, that's just a bit of an anecdote from there.
I think from my side is not just talking to the girls, but talking to the people around them. Like we want to create like a society and a culture that welcomes diversity. So as well as like encouraging girls to like start practicing code online, like do courses, because there's so many of them, so that you can practice and start to get the hang of it, and then maybe start to go to a hackathon. I really recommend going to hackathons. Like you start to meet loads of people which have similar interests to you, and that just naturally opens you up. And so because of this, like Audrey, the same thing happened to me. Like when I went to my first conference, AI for Good at the UN, like I was there and I was like I was 16 years old, and I was just like this little young girl like sitting there, and everyone would just stare just because it's so not normal. So I just want to start to like normalize like young people going into adult like paths, and as well as like girls going into these paths. But girls, like you're not alone, trust me.
I had a sort of a similar experience. So when I went to my first hackathon, oh my gosh, like it was so scary. I don't know about you, Sarah, but my one is just all guys. And it sounds like not simple advice, but it's the best thing really to do. Just submerge yourself, and if it is scary, because sometimes that's just something you've got to expose yourself to, and like that sometimes like you get used to it. I hate to say that, but you do get used to it. And it's often not as scary as you might think it is. Like the tech industry is definitely becoming much more diverse. I've seen it myself in the past couple of years. It's way better than what it used to be. I'm seeing more girls at hackathons. I'm seeing more girls being encouraged to go into the tech industry as well, like in career. So the scene is much better. It's not amazing, but it's better. And there's always people who are, I mean, whether they're a girl or a boy, it's like there's always nice people there, and like they're always happy to chat and happy to talk about tech because you do have similar interests. And it can be very, very daunting at first, but if you don't sort of go for it and sort of have to dip your toe in the water at least, then you wouldn't know otherwise. So I would encourage anybody, whether they're introverted, which I was definitely, just to give it a go. And I think, you do get used to it and it's better than you might think.
I completely agree with you, Hannah. And yes, it's better. It's a lot better than what it was before, just a few years ago, because of all of these conferences and webinars like Women in Tech as well. Yeah. So another thing is, I think if you're introverted, you actually have this power to focus on yourself and what you're going to do. So my advice would actually be, don't look around you and see what everybody else is doing, but focus on yourself and your own path. And then once you are in a high or a good leadership position, then you can speak about your story and then inspire other people who are introverted or who were in the same position as you were before. And then they wouldn't have to do that for you. Okay, so I would just think, keep going on your passion and just focus on yourself.
I really love that idea of the power of knowing yourself and working on yourself. I really like that. I think that perhaps some of the problem feeling too introverted to enter a male-dominated field is almost because it seems very out of the norm and out of your comfort zone, because you feel like it's so different to what you're used to, and maybe you're scared that these big, white, horrible men are gonna be really awful. And maybe the reality is slightly different to that, and it is very male-dominated. But that doesn't have to mean that it's not a space. It's not a space that you're not. It's a space that you're not welcome in. It does not mean that. And I think that when I went to my first event, it was actually, I went with my mum because I was too scared to go by myself. So I'd say if you're really introverted, bring a friend to go with you. That helped me so much. I think as I got older, I became maybe more scared and more introverted because I was more self-conscious. But having a friend there means that even if you're introverted, you do not have to talk to anyone that you're not comfortable with. You can ease yourself in, and you always have someone to relate to and share an experience with. And make that a girl, and make that someone who's diverse. And then together you can share the same experiences and relate. And gradually, I think you'll open up and begin to incorporate more people. And even if you don't, at least you know that you've had those experiences and that you've tried and that you've at least got someone else to share that with. So I think that that's my advice. And also to people who are parents of introverted kids, I would say start them young, because as I said, the older you get, the harder it is to break that barrier. You become more self-conscious. You think that you found your path. You're not willing to get involved in tech because you have more of these preconceived notions of what it means to be someone in tech. So the younger you are, the almost the less introverted and more childlike you are, and really willing to get stuck in. And once you're used to it, as Hannah said, then it just becomes natural and easier to be in. And maybe as a final question, since I'm aware that we're almost out of time, but we have so many great questions, and this is a really nice one to end off, is where do you see yourself in the future within the tech industry? No one knows.
I'll go. I think, I don't know exactly. I mean, I've just sort of been going with the flow, and I've never really planned out my career at all. And but it's like, I would be very surprised to hear where I am now if I told myself what I'd be doing like 10 years ago. But I'm just, I'm excited for the future. I really enjoy I'm excited for the future of VR. I'm excited to see the community become a lot more diverse. I'm excited to see more young girls into the community. But for myself, I think I'm just going to, really immerse myself in the social impact space, because I'm really excited about seeing the tech for good that's coming out. Seeing like what Joanna's doing, and Sarah and Audrey and Avanti, like it's so inspiring and really exciting to see where these things will go. And I want to be surrounded by people like this, and work on products which actually help people. So I don't like to say where exactly I'll be, but I like to think generally that's where I'll be, and what I'll be working on.
Okay, I'll go next. What I think is, the future for me, it's like, wow, so far away. Like, I don't even know. But what I have so many different things which I would like to do. But what I would really want to do is I would want to be someone in a position of power who can reach a lot of young girls. And then I would want to, with Workshop for Me, and collaborate with more nonprofit organizations, like all of you guys mentioned. And I want to kind of bring that forward and then kind of help young girls and iGens feel more accepted in the adult world today.
Yeah, so I think looking forward, and it's kind of crazy because I'm just 19, so I don't think I can perfectly say like what's set in stone for me to do in the future. Like I'm just about to start uni at Stanford this fall, so who knows what I'll take up, because with like the US process, we don't have to declare in our first years. But like right now, I intend on majoring in science, technology, and society, which is this really cool course that combines disciplines in STEM and the humanities and talks about how society affects science and how and vice versa. And I think overall, what I really want to work towards is making tech education accessible to everyone, regardless of their gender or socioeconomic status. And this is an issue that I feel very, very closely growing up here in the Philippines, because even though WeTech was started to help close the gender gap in tech here, I realized later on that it's much more complicated and much harder. It's a bigger conversation than just setting up like these conferences here in the Philippines and bringing in workshop speakers. Like it also deals with the system, the education system, the lack of tech curriculum that's available and accessible to everybody, especially in provincial areas that don't have Wi-Fi access. And because it's such a multifaceted problem, I feel like it's going to have to take initiatives, yes, from like the grassroots nonprofit sector, but also from the government and from the Department of Education stepping up and providing that curriculum, providing teachers to teach CS at these public schools. And like saying that all out loud and thinking about it is really overwhelming, but I'm hoping to be able to use the education I get in the US and bring it back here to the Philippines, and hopefully make sure that countries here in Southeast Asia don't get left behind in terms of how rapidly moving the tech scenes are becoming. So that's the plan.
Yeah, I think mine's quite similar to Hannah's as well. Is like I want to ensure that people are creating tech for good. I want to inspire the younger generations to be taught on ethics and the importance of ethics when creating new products. And in doing so, I want to accelerate gender equality in the world. Like using artificial intelligence, like is such a power tool to be able to like find those unconscious bias that we all live in and expose them to be able to do something about it. And I think due to that, I just want to ensure that like I can inspire all those girls so that I can be a role model for them, just like all of us. Because we really need those, and those younger girls really need us to ensure that they are also going to be pursuing a career in tech.
Yeah, I love that. We needed them when we were younger, and Avanti, you're young, but you're also a role model for those even younger than you. And they need us now. In the future, I guess my thing has always been that I just want to be a position in the future where I wish that I would have that person when I was my younger self to support me and to encourage me and be a role model. So I just want to be someone that my younger self will be proud of, and something that hopefully all those people around me will be proud of too. And I want to build something that makes a difference. I guess coming from someone who studies economics and management, I'm a bit of an anomaly in the fact that I don't actually study technology. But this is, I guess, my passion for integration and the fact that it intersects with everything that we do technology. And so in the future, I would love to be my own CEO of a company for social good, where we're really making a difference. Make money, do good is my slogan. I think that we hold so much power to make a real difference in the world. And so I want to be a role model and do as much as I can to help other people get into technology and get into any space that they want to be in, and just be a voice for others who are being left behind, and make sure that, as Sarah said, that we are there for the people who need us in the future as well. I think that is everything. We finished with exactly on time, which I'm so proud of, guys. So thank you so much. I really enjoyed hearing your stories, and I hope the audience did too. So thank you so much for your time.